backgrounds, different time zones. Some of you are up in the middle of the night. Thank you. Who's up in the middle of the night right now, right? Look at the hands going up. Thank you. But KK said something that's true. Is the one thing we all have in common is that we're all meant for more. Who knows you're meant for more, to more freedom, more control, right? And, you know, in times like these, isn't it nice to realize that you are enough, that you know enough, that you could do this? You just need the right support. You need the right framework. You need to know where to start. Who's ready to launch their next phase of life, to have more passion, more purpose, more success? Now, I want to share something. When we say we're meant for more, what does that really mean? What if we boil that down? You know, I've been saying that for years. A lot of people say it. But what does that really mean? And I want you to remember these words. We need to multiply our value in the marketplace. Really hear that. What is it? Multiply our value in the marketplace. Now, I'll get back to that in a second. Here's what I want to share. There's a few different types of people that are here today. I get that. I see Robert Cummins and Carlos in his car right now hanging with us, and Jamie and Teresa. There's some of you are, you just stop by because maybe Tony Robbins or myself or Jay Shetty or someone invited you and you go, hey, I trust those guys. Let me just see what that's up. And you're kind of investigating. Congratulations for being here. Stick with us. I promise we're going to pull back the curtain and we're going to show you why this, why now, why you. Some of you are already in business. You're doing this thing, but you're not getting the results you want. Congratulations, you're in the right spot. Whether this is a new business, new career, new life, new purpose, new joy, I promise you, Tony and myself have obsessed over this event. This isn't something we throw together in 5 minutes. We've been working on this for months, the last 3 months, obsessively. Tony and I talked 100 times yesterday, dialing in every little piece. The speakers have been working their tails off. It is meant to show you a path to go from where you are to where you want to be. And do it through understanding that your greatest asset you may own is your life experience. Now, we're going to unpackage that and show you that. And you might be thinking, okay, let's see. I don't know if this is for me. I don't have a following. I don't know if I can do anything online. I'm an introvert. Can you just trust me? Can I get a little trust? Can Tony and I today alone get your trust to see what's possible? Right? This is 72 years between the two of us combined that we've been blessed to do this. And I promise you, what you're going to see over these 5 days, we're here because this is our passion. This is our purpose. This is our mission that we're on. But going back to saying you're meant for more, that's cool to say, and it's true. We all know we're meant for more. But multiplying your value in the marketplace, I want you to look at this. Pull this slide up if you could. I grew up in upstate New York, and in upstate New York, there's a lot of oak trees. I call it the mighty oak. The oak tree is the strongest tree. It looks strong. The bark looks strong, right? If you live anywhere where an oak tree, you know what I'm talking about. Well, though it's a mighty oak, do you know that they make toothpicks out of oak? And they're like pennies, right? So a toothpick is worth pennies to do. Also, they make firewood out of oak. In fact, that was my first business at 16 years old. I used to cut firewood, split it, and sell cords of wood. It's worth hundreds of dollars. That's actually oak, I know, because I used to sell oak. So same oak tree, toothpicks and firewood. But that same oak tree could also build this conference table. That conference table could be thousands of dollars. Maybe that's a $10,000 conference table, right? Same tree. But that same wood also went into this violin that sold for $2.5 million. Now, what does that mean? The oak tree, it doesn't have a choice. It's either used as toothpicks, pennies, wood, hundreds, tables, thousands, something like this that's worth millions. What is the difference? It's the direction in which it went. An oak tree doesn't have an option. We are the greatest gift to this planet. Whatever your beliefs are, we are put on this earth and we have control. We have a voice. We have choices to shift. Are we working really hard? Here's one thing I know. Who in here is already putting time, effort, and energy into their life? Who's already working hard? Raise your hand if you're already working hard, right? That's a true story, but if you're working hard making toothpicks, maybe you're going in the wrong direction. See, I love this saying, and you could pull this up. I love this saying, rowing harder won't help if you're in the wrong boat and it's pointed in the wrong direction. You see, you might have sweat on your brow and you're stroking and you're going really hard. But what if you're paddling in the wrong direction? What if you're in the wrong boat? And today, what I want to share with you, if you'll open your mind to say we're meant for more, how do we get there? What I want to share with you is that this is the perfect time to get into another boat, at least peek in the other boat, peek into the self-education industry, which we're going to unpackage for you this morning to show you why this industry is one of the fastest growing industries in the world, why it's being fueled not by just Tony Robbins and myself, but by regular people all around the world who are realizing that their skill or their hobby or the thing they're passionate about or the mess they went through and they're on the other side is actually one of the most valuable assets you own. You just need what? You need to know where to start. You need a framework. You need confidence. You need to get over that, hey, nobody knows my name. How would I do that? And that's what we're going to show. Our whole goal, especially today, you got Mr. Tony Robbins coming here in a little bit. It's going to bust any of those old beliefs, right? Is he the best in the world at it? Today is about busting those old beliefs, but knowing that you can do this, that now is the perfect time. And we want to show you how to do it. Now, if you ever saw Warren Buffett, right? Warren Buffett goes live once a year, kind of does an address about his company. If you know Warren Buffett, he's one of the wealthiest people in the world, one of the smartest investors in the world. And there's two things he said about inflation and about a business in today's new world doing a thing. He said, number one, these are quotes from him, is the best protection against inflation is your own earning power. Isn't that true? Don't we want to own our earning power? Don't we want to own our decisions? If we put extra work in, don't we want to be able to make extra money, right? So we want to own our earning power. But number two is really powerful, is the second best protection, is, these are his words, it's a wonderful business that does not require heavy capital investment. And he went on to say, or heavy inventory, because when inflation goes up, what does that mean? Everything costs more, right? So the part that I love, you can take that down, what I love about this industry is think about it this way. And I know so many of you understand this, but I love silly analogies. Think about if Apple came to you and Apple said, hey, we got this iPhone 15 and we're going to give you an unlimited supply. We're going to send you as many as you need and we're not going to charge you. You don't have to warehouse them. You don't have to pay for shipping. You just sell them. Who would love that, right? Wouldn't that be an amazing opportunity, right? But what if you already had that asset? Knowledge is the new currency. That is the self-education industry. You have an unlimited supply. It impacts people in a massive way. Somebody is starting off where you once were and they want to go faster. I'll share more of that in a little bit. We know the framework to show you how to do it, how to show you how to do it with confidence and with clarity. And once you realize that, that's the nature of what this is about. First, we want to help you lean into the best version of you. And then secondly, show you what's possible. Who's up to see what's possible in this industry, right? Here's a cool part. Here's a cool part. We're not sure where the whole world is going, but pull up this slide. This is the knowledge industry. It is currently $399 billion a year, over $1 billion a day. It's heading to $1 trillion a year by 2028. So like anything, we don't want to be in the taxi service. We want to be in an Uber, right? We don't want to be in Blockbuster. If some of you remember Blockbuster, we want what's next. As Wayne Gretzky's quote, the great skater, the great hockey player, is, why was he so good? Because he said, I used to skate where the puck was going, not to where it was. Everybody else was going to where it was. I'd figure out where it was going. The self-education industry is where the world is going. And it's the reason Tony and I decided 5 years ago to pull back the curtain and show you guys how to do it. And since then, it's become a movement. It's why we do these events. It's why we love doing this free event and have you guys from over 100 countries from all around the world. I want to give you a little results disclaimer. The fact is, it is $1 billion a day industry. And it's one of the fastest growing industries in the world. And yes, it truly is the #1 secret of Tony and I to have a life of fulfillment, of joy, of abundance. We get to impact others for a living and be able to take care of our families and grow at the same time. But it's not just for Tony and I anymore. The world has opened up and it's your turn. And yes, every day, people just like you all around the world are doing this. But the last thing I want to say, if this isn't a magical money machine, we're not going to show you how to get rich for doing nothing. If you know anything about Tony and I, that's not what this is about. We want to show you a real skill, and we're going to unpack this in a really elegant way. So, you know, I look at it this way. What if your experience was your inventory? What if your knowledge was your asset? And your brain was just the warehouse. We just got to show you how to ship it and get it in people's hands, right? And then I wrote this down just 4 days ago, is what you're soon going to realize by being a part of this, you can pull this up, Mike, is you are enough. You know enough. And you can do this. The hardest part is getting started, but we know that. And this is the place you come to make it real. This is the method. This is the framework. This is how you own your future. So I'm going to encourage you, stay the course. This is the framework. Do the work. The results will follow. It's time to confidently launch yourself, to do something for you, your product, your business, in the self-education industry. And we'd love you to start with us on this journey today. Who's ready to start this journey with us today? Okay, so I'm going to go through this really quick. The 5 days, just so you know, here's my analogy to things, right? Some of you who just showed up and said, what is this about? And some of you are even thinking right now, could this be? I picture funny things, but I picture you kind of start, and I don't see anybody doing this, but you kind of start with, okay, let me see what this is. And each day, I want you to go from, maybe I could do this, to, wow, I think I could do this. Arms come uncrossed, kind of lean in a little more, to, I know I can do this. And I promise you, if you stick with us, by the time you get to day 5, it'll be, oh no, I know I can do this. I must do this, and I'm starting now. And over these 5 days, real simply, day 1 is why this, why now, why you? And then we have Mr. Jim Quick coming. Oh my God, he's amazing. And then Mr. Tony Robbins coming to just anchor in a belief where you know you could be unstoppable. That's day 1. Day 2, we'll show you exactly what you should be offering, how to go deep and identify the asset, and then who to offer it to. Day 3, how to get people to elegantly say yes through love and service. Day 4, how to confidently deliver it through a framework Tony and I created, the Story, Teach, Tool framework, blow your mind. And day 5, well, we bring it all together. That's the next 5 days with us. But I was thinking about something as we were putting this together. The last 3 years, we've got hit with a few things, haven't we?
He's in the back.
We've had 3 things in the past 3 years.
So I'm looking
kind of significant.
personal.
Pull this up quick, Mike.
I'm recording it on my phone.
So we had COVID.
On the background.
We had inflation, and now there's AI.
I will pick up my daughter.
Are they challenges or gifts?
Well,
are they opportunities or obstacles? Now let me go through these.
You can see
Number 1.
Purchasing
COVID. We already know the downside of COVID. Please don't think I am making it light in any way. We know everything bad. But can I ask you another thing about COVID? Who in here, when they were forced to stay home, maybe you're still realizing that it was time to do your own thing?
No time.
That you were maybe building someone else's
Drop
dream.
that in there.
That you wanted to work from home. You found time to reflect and look in the mirror and realize who you were, and you were going in the wrong direction. Raise your hand if you had a breakthrough during COVID because you were forced to think about you, forced to look at you in the mirror, right? People are still having that residual, but the byproduct of COVID also was that it fueled this industry exponentially. One of the biggest searches during COVID was coach or be a coach. People realized, I want to learn from somebody who's already been there, or I want to show people what I've already done. COVID created, why do you think it was the great resignation? People were quitting because they finally realized, I want to do my own thing. I don't just want a job that pays the bills. I want to do something that has purpose and passion that gets me to jump out of bed in the morning. Who wants purpose and passion and wants to jump out of bed in the morning? That's why we're here. Life is too short. Then the second one is inflation. Inflation hit all over the news. Your money just doesn't go as far. Of course that's difficult, right? The same money doesn't go as far as it used to go. So could there be a gift in that? Well, like Warren Buffett said, inflation made you realize if you're not in control of the revenue you can create, then you're at the mercy of the decisions other people make. Is that true? Whether it's, you know, the left or the right or the president or the Congress, it doesn't matter who it is. It still affects all of us, doesn't it, equally? So we realize inflation, of course, we know the negative side, but it's also that wake-up call and says, no, 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 it's time. It's time for me to be in control of my family. It's time for me to make decisions that no matter what happens with inflation, I have the opportunity to be inflation-proof.
Berry water. There's actually quite a bit of soda.
And then the last one is AI. I'm 54 years old. So anything with technology kind of freaks me out. Anybody around my age, when I get a new phone and I got to transfer my old data to my new one, I stare at it. I see Maria laughing at me. I stare at it freaking out that I think that it's going to lose my data and not have my kids' pictures when they were little, right? It's like my son, my 14-year-old son's like, Dad, would you stop? You just let him transfer. AI can be overwhelming. AI, you can look through the lens of it being confusing. But what you're going to see over the next few days, AI used simply could also be the thing that gets you off the blank page. It's also the thing that can give you a jump start when it's used right. So we have the opportunity to take these last 3 years, these three big challenges or gifts, COVID, inflation, AI, and you're going to see the opportunity to use those as wind behind your sail, not an anchor. Who's ready to see a different perspective on that? Who's ready to shake it off? Listen, let's just say it like it is. I'm getting in a groove here. I feel it now. Say it like it is. The last 3 years has kind of been everybody else doing crappy shit in the outside world, and it's affecting us. Is that true? Isn't it time that we take control? Isn't it time that we do it for ourselves, right? You know, so many times people say, but I don't really have a following, and I don't know if my experience is valuable, and no one knows my name. God, I'm not Tony, I'm not Dean. I want to share about that here in a moment.
Highly trained in conflict resolution.
But let me ask you this, and I've asked this for a decade, and I'd love for you to answer it. What if you had a week to prepare, and you had the opportunity to go back and spend a day with your 20-year-old self, and you got to pick a topic?
So how long?
Maybe it's relationships. Like, oh, I got to tell them. I got to tell my 20-year-old self. You don't have to jump into the first relationship. Find somebody that's equal with you, someone that empowers you, someone that lifts you up as you lift them up. I don't know what you would tell them, but if you had a week to prepare, how cool would it be to go back and talk about a relationship?
July 11th.
Or maybe business. Like, just because your parents put you through that college, it doesn't mean you have to take that career. You can do your own thing, or you can go to that thing that filled your heart and had the opportunity for success. Let me just ask you in the chat right now, put it in the chat. If you had the opportunity to go back and spend a day with your 20-year-old self, how much would that be worth to you? Or what would it be worth
I
to
can
you?
give you that water
Right?
that's like vapor again.
And the fact is, $1 million, right? A gazillion, yeah. It's always priceless, millions or billions. Look at them coming in super fast. Everybody, put YouTube, Facebook, here in Zoom, put it in the chat, because the reason I share that is to remind you that someone else needs that experience of yours just as much as your 20-year-old self. Somebody else is going through something that you've already been through. Someone else is starting to learn something that you've already learned. Someone else is about to make some bad choices. You already made those bad choices. You could stop that.
I think they're gonna pray on.
What we do in this industry is just take our life experience. One, we learn from someone else. Tony Robbins started teaching what he learned from Jim Rohn. I started teaching what I learned from Tony Robbins. We have the opportunity to shorten someone's learning curve, shorten someone's experience, and that's why this industry has grown to $1 billion a day, because people don't want to go back to school. They don't want to learn on their own. They want to learn from you if you're willing to share it. Who's willing to learn how to share their life experience and make it valuable? Unlock the asset that's in your mind, right? Listen, you're all here for one of two reasons. Isn't it true? I hate to boil it down, but the fact of the matter is, some of you want to move away from an experience that's not so pleasant. Move away from a career that doesn't fulfill you. Move away from income. Move away from feeling that you're obligated to stay in something toxic because of money. Some of you just realize it's your turn. You had the career and you took care of everybody there. You took care of the kids. You took care of maybe your husband or your spouse or your significant other. And now it's time to sit, when you look in the mirror, you go, it's time for me. Who knows it's time for me? It's time to do the thing, right?
I think if it was you to wake up in the middle of the night.
Well, if we know that, then we just have to decide the best path into get that result, right? So the reason I share this is I want to give you a little context of why this is so important to Tony and I. And me. Tony will share his story later when he's here. That's relevant to this. Maybe some of you have heard Tony's story, not relevant in this, but I want to share mine. You know, we all have our story. When when I was a kid, I watched my parents divorced when I was 3, and I watched my mom. I lived with my mom. I watched her work 3 jobs to make nothing. We lived in a trailer park. Not that that's the worst thing in the world, but when you get evicted from a trailer park, that's tough, especially when my mom was already working 3 jobs. So the reason I'm sharing that is because we're here for 1 of 2 reasons. I went into doing my own thing because I was moving away from pain. I moved away from watching my mom struggle, come home 9 o'clock every night, tired and want to fall asleep on the couch. Me and my sister making dinner for her. I wanted to move away from pain. That's the reason I'm in this business. Some of us, life's not bad. You got the career, you got the thing, but you know you want to move towards more pleasure, more fulfillment, more joy, right? Isn't that all of us? We're either moving away from pain or moving towards pleasure. Isn't that true? I hate to boil it down, but you have to remember that. Before I go any further on my story, just promise me you'll remember that through these 5 days, because what happens is our brain starts kicking in and say, oh, that's not for us. It's that same belief that's already cost you the last 2 opportunities. It's that same voice of doubt that's made you stall. It's that same voice that causes imposter syndrome. And you just wait. Wait for what? There's no magic wand. There's no one coming to save us. It's on us. And when you remember it's on us, then we have the opportunity to say, okay, who can I follow? What can I do? How do I take that uncomfortable action? And I want to give you a little context in my life. It was moving away from pain. And at a young age, I got my hustle on, and I got a collision shop, and I had a tow truck, and I started getting some momentum in my life. I started to get some success. I started building houses and having some apartment buildings. In my mid-20s, though, anybody here have a little success in your life, but it's not fulfilling? Or you know you're a little hosed up, like everybody from the outside's going, Leslie, you look like you got life all dialed in. And in the mirror, when you're looking in the mirror, like, they don't know the shit that's going on when I'm alone, right? They don't know what I'm dealing with, right, Benjamin? I see you shaking your head, right? It's like, everything looks okay from the outside, but in here, it's not so good. I stayed up one night late, and Tony Robbins is on an infomercial, because there was no internet back then. So I was on infomercials too, because there was no internet. Talk more about that later. And I just felt like he was talking to me. And I did something I had never done in my whole life. I bought everything he had. It was so long ago in the 90s. I got his course. I had a Sony Walkman with cassette tapes and the orange earbuds of the Sony Walkman, and I listened to this thing. Oh my God! And I have to tell you, literally, as a kid, I did live in a trailer park. I did live in a house that had no heat in it. My dad literally and I slept in a bathroom because it was so small. We just blanked, and I spent 6 months living in a bathroom. We'd drag a mattress in at night, and in the morning wake up, we'd drag it out. We'd take turns taking a shower and then go do our thing. So I know what that felt like. I knew I wanted to move away. I started getting momentum, but I knew it wasn't in the right way, and all of a sudden, Mr. Tony Robbins comes. I get this course, and I'm listening to it. Whoever felt listening to Tony that he was talking directly to you? Anybody ever feel, if you've ever heard Tony Robbins in your life? I'm listening to those audios, I'm like, oh, everybody kind of likes this guy. Tony's talking to me. Thanks, brother. Appreciate you, right? But it made me realize 2 things that I think is really important here today. One was,
did you know my sister?
That my past could be my fuel. It doesn't have to be my anchor. That life could happen for me, not to me. That I could focus on solutions. I could crush limiting beliefs. Some of the things he's going to be sharing today, the best in the world at what he does, nobody even in second place. And all these things got me fired up. But the second thing happened to me. The light bulb went on and said, wow, Tony Robbins sold me information. And it changed my life. I want to be in that business. I want to do that. Well, I have to tell you, I got excited. Who's ever been so excited you just did not think of the downside? You're just going in like, I am freaking doing this. I am going no matter what, right? So this is before the internet, so I got to produce an infomercial. I got to build a product. I got to build a course. I got to warehouse it. I got to buy media. I'm in like $200,000, and I didn't even have all the money. I used credit cards to help me get there. And I'm like, I don't care. This is what I'm doing. I am making this happen.
To get out so I can get mixed up.
And it was about making money with cars, which I know, it seems a little cheesy, but that's how I became successful. I found a way to make money with cars through the classified ads. Some of you don't even know what the classified ads are in the back of a newspaper. Long story short, I digress. I'm confident. I'm like, I'm doing this. I'm going in this industry. I'm going to do what Tony does. I'm going to help people make some extra money with cars. I'm going to sell what I know. Yay! And then my sister, who I love dearly, and maybe you've experienced something like this in your life. She lived in Virginia. I lived in upstate New York, about an 8-hour ride here in the States. She jumps in the car, she drives 8 hours, and sits me down like an intervention. She says, Dean, we're so proud of you for all you accomplished, but you went too far. you don't have a college education. What have you ever taught before? What do you know about infomercials and products and customer service and support? Do you have the money to do this? What if it goes wrong? Dean, just stop. Pay off the debt. If it's $200,000, just pay it off. It'll take you 10 years and stay on the track. Do you realize how lucky you are that without a college degree, you've already had success? She did it because she loved me, and she was just looking through that lens to protect her little brother. Anybody ever been in a situation like that? Well, here's where I went for a walk. Now, it's in a little town in upstate New York that I just was in 3 weeks ago. I went for a walk on this road. I will never forget this road. And maybe you've had your own version of this walk. I'm walking down this road, and there is two voices in my head ready to fist fight. They're a millimeter apart, and I am undecisive because one is going, your sister's right, you fool. Are you kidding? You're not Tony Robbins. He's 6'7". You're 5'7". On a good day, you don't have a following. You don't have money. You've never been on TV. You don't know how to command an audience. Are you just a freaking idiot? You just took all the money that you started with nothing. You made all this money. You burned every bit of it. And now you're in this dream that you're going to be a guy that helps people with your knowledge. And a millimeter away was a voice that said, I don't care. I don't care. I know I'm meant for more. I can multiply my value. I can impact others. I remember thinking, I might live to be 90, but I'll be dead right now if I don't go after the man that I was designed to be, not the one I'm settling to be. And I don't mean to get emotional on it, but I remember this moment like it was yesterday. And as I'm walking with both of these voices, and I'm like torn, and 1 minute I'm here, and 1 minute I'm there, and there was one thing that guided me down the road to going after who I wanted to become. As I realized that I didn't have to be someone to everyone. Meaning I was overwhelmed because I was thinking, you're right, I haven't made millions of dollars with cars. I don't know how to do a new car dealership. God, I don't know how to manage 20 employees. When I got that part, it was the voice of you're crazy. But then I started thinking, yeah, but that's not what I'm going to teach. I knew this cool method to make a few extra $1,000s a month by flipping one car through the classified ads. It was a cool strategy of matching a buyer and a seller, and I did it. It's how it got me my whole momentum. And when I started thinking about that, I was like, no. If you put people in a room that want to learn how to flip a car a month without getting greasy, that's what I could do. And all of a sudden I started saying, no. Everybody's looking at it wrong. I'm going to teach this one thing. And thank God I did. Thank God that I did. In that moment, I made a decision to go against self-doubt, to go against imposter syndrome, what they call it today, to go against my dad, to go against my sister, and lean into who I was meant to be, because what I realized in that moment is I would rather go after who I'm meant to be and fail than be stuck in someone else's life living for other people. And I still carry that passion with me today. I'll never forget what that feels like. And if I didn't say yes that day, I wouldn't have been able to do really cool stuff in my life. If you pull the slide up, right? I had the opportunity, I don't know if you guys saw it, I got to do an event with 2.5 million people showed up day one right here with Matthew McConaughey. I watched every one of his movies when I was a kid. Now he's someone on first name basis, and we got to impact 2.5 million people in this room. Who the hell would ever thought this kid that was in a collision shop walking down a road going, I'm meant for more. No, I'm a loser for even trying, right? It all happens over time. I get to be partners with Tony Robbins. He's my dearest friend in the whole world. I got to go hang out with Richard Branson on his island for a personal invite. I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying, what if I just said, everyone's right. I should be happy with my life. And maybe today, if it's even one person that needs to hear that, is listen to that voice that's telling you you're meant for more. Yes, we hope it's this industry. We hope you continue to work with us and work through these 5 days to see what's possible. But this event is more of saying, this is your time. It's time for you. It's time to gain new skills and take that uncomfortable action and do whatever it takes to keep moving forward. I got to do some really cool stuff in my life. You can bring that back up, Mike. And the other thing I got to do that I think most people don't realize, sometimes people say, can money buy happiness? And I say, well, if you don't think it does, maybe you haven't given enough away. There's a popular movie out about children in slavery, right? We had the opportunity to donate $600,000 to Operation Underground Railroad to help save kids. We built 2 schools in Africa. We fed over 19 million people in the last couple of years. And this event, we should feed another million people just from this event, from you guys upgrading to VIP and other things, right? And we're matching some of it. We'll talk about that later. This year, we donated $500,000 to Matthew McConaughey's School Safety Initiative. With all the school shootings, we're raising money to help kids be more protected in their schools. I never could have done any of this if I didn't make that right, if I didn't listen to that crazy dreamer voice and say, I am meant for more. And then gain the skills to multiply my value in the marketplace. Who's ready to multiply their value in the marketplace, right? And then I think the most important one of them all, and this is mine personally, is watching my dad work like crazy and wasn't able to be there. He had to take care of us. My mom working really hard, she had to be there. For me, my most personal success is I get to be in control. I get to own my calendar, own my decisions. I got to retire my dad. That's me and him in the golf cart. I retired him when I was 29. I retired my mom, who's in the lower left there with me and my wife. I retired her when I was 25. I have 4 amazing children. We get to do things that my whole life is about work and my family, but I get to coach the Little League. I get to take my kids to school. I get to do amazing things. I get to live life on my terms, and the truth is, all the other stuff is amazing, but this to me is worth everything. And I would die to do this. And what we want to show you over the next couple of days is the blueprint where maybe you could gain more freedom, more passion, more purpose. If you're in right now, let me know. Put it in the chat. Say, I'm in. If Tony and I and this amazing group of people are going to spend these next days with you, we're going all in. We just ask that you commit as well. And here's the cool part. It's not just what you're going to see, and you're going to see a lot of this over the next couple of days. It's not just Tony and Dean and a handful of people. Look at all the I'm in. I appreciate you guys playing full out. Put your fingers on those keypads. I wish we were in an audience where I could hear you. This is our way to communicate. But this is becoming a movement. And this industry is growing so fast that it needs you. If you've ever watched somebody surf, and when I've been to California lots of times in the summer. I don't surf, but I love watching surfers. And a big wave comes, and the ones that get out in front of it, that wave, what's it do? It pushes them all the way to the shore, right? And then you see somebody try to grab a wave a little late, and they're paddling like crazy, and it kind of just rolls over, right? That's what I feel about this industry right now. This wave is coming. And yes, Tony and I are yelling from mountaintops on why you should look under the cover, why you should gain skills, why you should consider it, because it is that wave. And right now you're in front of it. And we want to show you how to ride that wave in. Could you pull this up? Amira, right? Would never think in a million years. Amira helps women overcome their fears around their scars. Think about how unique this is. And it's a business. She owns a company now called Scar Power. She went for 12 years not even showing her scar because she was insecure about it. She also was an unemployed project manager until she came to an event just like this. And now she owns a company called Scar Power, and she's crushing it. Look at somebody like Steph, who helps people with stress management. He was a real estate agent and realized that he was really good at helping people through stress. He went really deep, studied harder, stronger, left his job. Now Steph is a successful coach helping people deal with stress. Noelle, I had the opportunity to meet Noelle. She's so awesome. She has such a vibrant smile and energy around her. She was a therapist, and she saw so many parents going through this transition into empty nest and feel like, oh my God, what do I do now? So she created a program, wrote a book to help families through empty nest syndrome and go to this next stage of life. She wrote a book. She has a program. She's doing it. Just so you know, when I met Noelle, she's like, oh my God, I could never do it. I was hiding. There was no way I was ever going to put myself out there. There was no way I was going to tell anybody. And now you watch her. She's vibrant. She's alive. She loves it. You have somebody like Sean who helps people use the power of AI and new technology. This was someone who said, I was paying the bills, I was taking care of my family, but I was dead on the inside. And then he came to an event just like this and decided to stay in all 5 days, gain the skills. And now in 6 months, he's got 50 people paying him every single month for his coaching services. You know, I thought this one was really powerful. Mike, if you could play that video, I'll share a little story about Hui Hui in a moment here.
Hey everyone, my name is Hui Hui. I'm a business coach from Singapore. I help new entrepreneurs and coaches to create their courses and become a coach. Just 4 months before Own Your Future Challenge, I was on this Zoom call with a six-figure coach. She was the only six-figure coach I knew at that time. And I shared with her that I wanted to be a speaker, a trainer, and a coach. That was my secret wish for 14 years. And over the Zoom, she looked at me sternly in the eyes and she told me, Hui Hui, you're so shy and introverted, you can't speak well, and you don't even have a social media following. I was just so crushed. It was as if a knife just pierced through my heart. And it was only 4 months later when I joined the Own Your Future Challenge that Dean said on stage that in order to start this self-education business, all you need to do is just be one chapter ahead. And because of that one sentence that Dean said, I got the confidence that I could do it as well. My first goal was to hit 100K in 100 days. And I did that in 70 days. And actually, just last year alone, I did 1.2 million. If not for Dean, if not for Own Your Future Challenge, I wouldn't be here at all. And I wouldn't have the 150 over clients that I now have. And I wouldn't be able to feel so passionate about doing this every single day because work doesn't feel like work anymore to me, because now I'm fulfilling my calling, I'm fulfilling my mission to be able to help more women, more men, more entrepreneurs and coaches to be able to take their passion and really turn that into an online business. And that is what I feel called to do as well. Hey everyone, my name is Hui Hui.
You see that? Yeah, let's give it up for Hui Hui. You know, when I see that, I know the courage it took. I know the things that she's done in the invisible when no one was watching, the self-doubt, looking in the mirror and going, yeah, maybe English is hard for me to share, and I am shy, I'm an introvert, and I don't want to be on camera, but I still have this passion to be more. So when I see that, I could be emotional of what she went through to have that success. And I want to share a few things. She was at our 2021 Own Your Future Challenge. That's how she started. She was sitting in the same exact seat. She had just lost her job. She saw Tony Robbins. She's like, I'll show up. I don't even know what this is. And all of a sudden she realized this has been my passion. And she took the uncomfortable action. And I know she had some big claims. I am not saying in any way you're going to make $70,000 or $100,000 in 70 days or ever. She took action. She went all in. She took the uncomfortable action. She faced her demons. So it's not a guarantee, but it's what's possible. And I thought it was so amazing because we get so many videos like that, Tony and I, every single day, and we don't take it for granted. It's what fuels us. And isn't it cool to see what's possible, to see through a different lens? So here's what I want to share. Let's go to the whiteboard. This is a sloppy drawing, but I think it'll really tie together why you. You know, my job today, Tony's job today, he's going to do, like I said, better than any human on the planet, is to bust old beliefs and instill a new one so you leave today unstoppable. You'll be vibrating today. Good luck sleeping tonight after watching Tony Robbins today. I promise you that. I promise you that. My job today is for you to see what's possible, to see that this could be the boat, that you could still, you're rowing hard, but let's get in a boat where you're rowing in the direction of where you want to go. Because remember this, if you're in a boat, what would a boat look like if you're in a boat and you just turn the wheel a little bit here? You're just a little off course now, but if you left the wheel that way, where would you be when you're a mile out in the ocean? Completely off course, right? Completely off course. It's not like you have to re-establish your whole life. Sometimes we just got to turn the wheel a little bit to get back on track, to get in the right boat, to see what's possible, to see where the world is going, where the puck is going, gain the skills, and have the team around you to help row in the right direction. To realize, like I said earlier, you are enough, you know enough, you could do this, you just need the framework and know where to start. And that's what this event's all about. And you're going to see a lot of great people who started at an event just like this questioning themselves. But I love sharing what I see is the self-education industry. Why is it $1 billion a day? Why do they predict it to be $1 trillion a year by 2028? It's not magical. It's because, just being honest, the education system hasn't evolved as fast as it should. I'm not knocking school because I didn't go. It's just, it's growing. It's not pacing with how fast the world is going. And people aren't getting the results that they used to get going back to school. People are realizing that they don't want to learn through their own trial and error. They want to learn from someone who's already been there. And that's you. That's your experience, right? So what I wanted to share is what I see the self-education industry, the one Tony and I are in, the one all the speakers are in, is really we're bridge builders, and this is the bridge. And let me tell you what I mean by that, to make it simple. Is in life, as you're going across this journey of life, sometimes we get to a point where a mess happens. You go through the divorce. You lost the job. You had an illness and you had to shift your diet. Someone said yes. Someone said no. Someone was unfaithful. Someone let you down. But in that journey, when you go, I can't believe I'm going through this mess, what happens eventually? You find solutions. You gain capabilities. You get to the other side and life continues, right? Wiser, smarter, because you went through this valley. Sometimes you have to learn something new. You have to learn to do yoga or meditation. You have to learn a sales skill. You have to learn accounting. You have to learn to paint. You have to learn to do extensions in hair. Believe me, Tony and I have recognized over 4,000 different niches that people have done, but you're in the process of learning something. Learning something new is not easy. You start maybe a first day at sales, don't know how to do it. First day at hair, first day at painting, first day at school. You're learning something. It's a pain to learn it, but over time, it turns into having skills, and then it turns into wisdom, and your mess goes to a solution, but your learning turns into a skill. It's a skill you have right now that you take for granted. You just know it and you utilize it every day, and you don't realize that someone else is starting here. Is that true, Tyler Morin? Right? Is that true? Like we said, our 20-year-old self, but someone else is right here. They're looking over the cliff. Like, I am going through a divorce. I'm scared to death. I got to go through this cliff. But what if you're over here and say, I went through a divorce? We have so many people that help people through divorce or child-centered divorces because they went through the hell. Sometimes this valley is down here. They're on the other side. And when this person is looking over the cliff going, I got to do this, you're over here going, hey, I've already been through it. Let me show you how to get there faster. Right? The last one is sometimes we got to take action. Really, it's uncomfortable action. You got to be bold enough to make the decision. You got to quit. You have to start. You have to say no. You have to say yes, something that didn't feel great. But don't we all realize that sometimes the things we're the most scared of, the things we learn the most from? So you had to take some uncomfortable action, but that action actually turned into a skill or even mastery while you were going through this dip. So not to oversimplify it, but the self-education industry is we're bridge builders. We just help people when they're looking over this cliff. Instead of going through this, we get them to go quicker by providing our experience. Like what you would share with your 20-year-old self, there is an asset that's inside of you. There is an experience that's inside of you, and that's my job tomorrow. I promise you by the end of tomorrow, you will know exactly what to create that's in here and who exactly wants it and needs it right now. But for today, I want you to realize that this industry is growing because they want and people need your experience. And the cool part is when Tony and I started, Tony started 40-something years ago. I started 26 years ago and 27 years ago. When I started, I had to build an infomercial. I had to put a product in inventory. I had to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. Those days are gone. We all receive things digitally. Look, we're on Zoom with over 100 different countries instantaneously right now. You could be on a Zoom in 3 weeks from now impacting somebody with a life experience of yours, but you need the framework. You need to know where to start. You need to get after the right people. Start using social media rather than it using you. And I'm not talking about getting a big following. That's probably one of the biggest lies of all of it. So, who's already a little more intrigued? Who's already seeing this opportunity and who's a little more excited right now than you were when we started? Well, that's our goal today. So, like I said, in a second here, I'm going to bring out our first guest. But our goal today, and I'm going to encourage you to get from this day what you need. Have you been playing small? Have you been waiting? Have you been living life for somebody else? I don't know what your story is, but we all have it. I want to promise you that you are enough. And you could do this. And we could do it together. But I want you to think what that thing was. I asked you in the Facebook group, for those of you who saw it, what is that thing that's been holding you back? Today is the day you find it and crush it. And tomorrow, we're going to know exactly what to offer and to who. The next day, how to get people to say yes through service. Each day builds on the rest. I promise you by day 5, you won't be able to sleep. This is so exciting. Imagine waking up with purpose and passion in an industry that's growing. We're so excited. So, you guys ready to fire it up and light it up for our next guest here? You know, our next guest, I've known our first guest for over a decade. And I've admired his work. I've seen him on with every celebrity you could possibly imagine, helping them think better, think through things in a different way to maximize their experience. Mr. Tony Robbins and I both know this gentleman very well. And he's got the ability to allow you to look at things in a different perspective, to avoid overwhelm, to go faster. Now, this is a man who had a brain injury at a young age that caused focusing to be a problem. Now, I could look at all his amazing credentials and multiple New York Times bestselling author, but let me tell you the man I know. Had a brain injury, thought he was dumb, learned from a new way, dumb, slow, whatever the word you want to use that's politically correct. Long story short, he was struggling until he found a new way to think, a new way to learn, and he obsessed on it. And not only cured it, he's one of the most intelligent people I know, but gives it to you in a practical way to go faster. And I'm so excited that he's here to show you today, to prepare you to take in this knowledge over the next 5 days, to absorb it, utilize it. And I don't want to take away any of his thunder. I'm so grateful for the man he is. I got to spend 3 or 4 days in Florida with him and his significant other, who she's so amazing, and the two of them are a powerhouse. And today, you have the privilege to learn from our dear friend, Mr. Jim Kwik. Can we please give it up for him? Thanks, Jim.
All right. So I'd like to start by saying really how much I appreciate the energy here and how much I respect you because you're showing up for yourself. You know, it's creating the life that you really desire deep down can be scary. But you know what also is scary? Regret, right? Growth is hard, change is scary, but nothing is as hard and scary as staying somewhere stuck where you just don't belong. So my fullest respect. In this session, I'm going to go very, very tactical. I'm going to show you how to own your future by owning your brain. Your brain is your #1 wealth building asset, you know, especially in the self-education industry. And I believe that knowledge today is not only power, knowledge is profit, right? The faster you can learn, the faster that you could earn. And so I'm going to share with you 12 tips on how to get the most out of the next 5 days. To be able to focus, to be able to retain that information, to avoid being overwhelmed also as well. And that's going to be my focus, and it's going to be very, very tactical. Now, before I go into this, I'm going to give you an acronym in a moment, but how many of you would like to have a better brain? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Yes? Nobody wants a worse brain, right? How many of you feel like there's too much to learn but too little time? Anyone feel like it's just like taking a sip of water out of a fire hose? Right? a few people feel a little overloaded and overwhelmed. How many of you have books on your shelf you haven't read yet? And it becomes shelf help, not self-help, right? You know, because if you can't learn it, you can't be able to read it, and you can't apply it. How many of you would like to have a better memory? And it's a good thing I'm a speed reader here also as well, seeing the Zoom chat and the comments and then Facebook, also in YouTube. How many of you came like to have a better memory? Raise your hand again so I can see it. Amazing. How many of you forgot why you came here today? Have you ever done that? Let's get real. Have you ever walked into a room of your own home and just forgot why you're there? Anyone feel like senior moments are coming way too early? Like read a page in a book, get to the end, and just forget what you just read? And you reread it, and you still don't know what you just read? Or you misplace things like your wallet, your purse, your cell phone, your car keys, or if not your car keys, something much larger like your car. You ever see the people in the parking lot using their car alarm like GPS, trying to figure out where they parked their car? Then they realize they took Lyft earlier that day, like, oh. And how many of you have trouble remembering names? You meet somebody, you get their name, and seconds later, their name just disappears out of your mind. You know, I think your ability to remember people's names is one of the #1 networking, business etiquette skills there is. And so I believe two of the most costly words in your life are I forgot. I forgot to do it. I forgot to bring it. I forgot the meeting. I forgot that conversation. I forgot what I was going to say. I forgot that person's name. On the other side, though, memory can make you money. When you could easily remember client information, product information, foreign languages, facts, figures, give speeches like this with, how many of you would like to do some public speaking? That was one. Yeah, that was one of my biggest challenges. You know, as Dean mentioned, I had a traumatic brain injury when I was 5 years old. I was in kindergarten class. I took a very bad fall headfirst into a radiator. I was rushed to the emergency room, and my parents said I was never the same afterwards. You know, before I was very playful, very curious, very energized, but afterwards I became very sedated. You know, I became very shy. I had processing issues. Teachers would repeat themselves over and over again, and I would pretend to understand, but I didn't really understand any of it. I had poor focus, a poor memory. It took me 3 years just to learn how to read like all the other kids after my TBI. When I was 9 years old, I remember I was slowing down a class and I was being teased and bullied pretty harshly about it. And a teacher came to my defense and she pointed to me in front of the whole class and said, "Leave that kid alone. That's the boy with the broken brain." And I remember, it's interesting because I didn't know I had the broken brain, but how many of you have children? Raise your hand. How many of you once were a child? Raise your hand. And who are the fastest learners, right? Kids. And kids, they learn languages. And if you have kids, they can learn a musical instrument very, very rapidly. So I'm going to show you how to tap into more of that potential, because I struggled all through school. And I remember when I was 18, I went to college and I just couldn't cut it. And I wanted to quit. And a friend said, "Hey, I'm going home for the weekend. Why don't you come with and get some perspective?" Because I didn't know how to tell my parents. Because we didn't, my parents immigrated to the U.S., didn't have money, didn't speak the language, lived in the back of a laundromat that my mom worked at. And everybody has their own story. But for me, when I got to visit the family, the father walked me around his property by the water and said a very innocent question, which was the worst question you could ask me. He said, "How's school?" And I tell him my whole story about having the broken brain. I'm ready to quit school. And he says, "Well, why are you in school? What do you want to be? What do you want to do? What do you want to have? What do you want to share?" And I offer you those same kind of questions. What do you want to be, do, have, share in your life? And I tell him my list, and he's like, "You're this close to everything on that list." And I'm thinking, no, give me 10 years. I'm not going to crack that list. And he takes his index fingers and puts them to the side of my head, meaning what's in between my brain is the bridge or the key. And he takes me into a home, into his home in a room that I've never seen before. It is wall to wall, ceiling to floor, covered in books. Now, I never read a book, cover to cover. I was a very poor reader. My teachers would have been surprised if I wrote a book, read a book or wrote a book, right? And he starts handing me these books, and there were these early personal development books and biographies of incredible men and women throughout history. And one of those books happened to be Tony's book, Unlimited Power. How many of you have had this book? And I studied this book. And I remember later on, a couple years afterwards, in the 90s, I just turned 50 this weekend. So I'm just kind of thinking about the life cycles. Thank you. But I was reflecting on it, and I went to one of his events in the 90s, one on Competitive Edge. And I wrote in it, I swear to you, one day I was so impressed. I was like, I want to share stage with this guy, And it's funny how the mind works, right? Believe it's possible, but you have that intention. And I'm going to share with you exactly what I did to be able to create this goal. And so right now I'm going to share with you 12 keys. I'm going to use an acronym. In order to own your future, you want to own your brain. All right, I'm going to use a mnemonic so I could go through really fast so you could remember, hopefully, everything that I'm talking about. Now, the O, well, before I tell you what the O stands for, everyone do this. I can see you. Shake out your hand. Peggy, shake your Kimberly, fantastic. Shake out your hand. Everyone do this, even if you're not on video. Make a fist. Put it to your chin. Now, everybody, where's your chin? Right? Okay, so the O stands for observe. All right. A lot of people, when they forget something, they blame their retention when it's really your attention. The art of memory is the art of attention. The art of memory is the art of attention. And I have a quote in my book, Limitless, that says, "Life is the letter C between the letters B and D." Please write this down. Life is C between the letters B and D. What does that stand for? The B stands for birth. The D stands for death. What do you think what does life stand for, the C? Choice. We are the sum total of all the choices we've made up to this point, right? Where are we going to live? Who are we going to spend time with? What are we going to eat? What are we going to pursue as a career? And I truly believe that these difficult times, they could diminish you. These difficult times can distract you, or these difficult times can develop you. Ultimately, we decide. So these are the choices that I'm looking for. The first one is to really pay attention, right, and be able to focus. So do all the things to be able to manage your environment, turn off your phone, right? This is time for you, time well spent, right? You are the greatest project you're ever going to work on. So take time, make time as you're doing to create magic. Now the O stands for, let me go through this, So the first one was observe. The W is work out. Now, I don't mean physically like going, CrossFit or Pilates 3 times a week. Although what's good for your heart is going to be good for your head, right? Blood flow, oxygen flow also as well. And if you could do a workout beforehand, wonderful. But I mean moving. They say sitting is the new smoking. And what I love about Tony and Dean's, programs and their events is it gets you up and moving. Please write this down. As your body moves, your brain grooves. As my body moves, my brain grooves. When you move your body, right, I'm going to show you an exercise right now, my favorite exercise to be able to wake up your brain and focus. When your body moves, you create brain-derived neurotropic factors, BDNF, which is like fertilizer for neuroplasticity. It's like fertilizer for new learnings, all right? And do this with me. So everyone stand up real quick. Stand up. You're like, oh, he's one of these guys, right? And so what I want you to do is I want you to take your hand or your elbow and touch your opposite knee. Raise your knee and just go back and forth. This is an area of science called educational kinesiology. What popularized this was Brain Gym. These are cross crawls. As you cross the midline, and you could do this throughout the next 5 days. It wakes up, it helps communication between your left and your right brain. All right, these are called cross crawls. Another exercise, a good workout while you're, taking a brain break is massage your earlobe with the opposite hand and do the other hand also as well. Just get a good massage into your earlobe. And I want you to inhale and squat down and exhale and come on up. Inhale and go down. Exhale, come on up. Inhale, are we getting this on video? Good. Inhale, go down. Exhale, come on up. One more time. Inhale, go down. Exhale, come on up. This is called super brain yoga. So these are 2 quick exercises you could do to keep your focus and keep you in that learning state, all right, which you could do throughout the day. Now, the N, as we go through it, is note-taking. Now, everybody knows there's a learning curve, but you know what? There's also a forgetting curve. What percent would you say you forget within learning something once? You hear it in a challenge, you hear it on a podcast, you read it once, you have a conversation. What percent do you feel like you forget? 80%. All right, that's what research says, 80%. And one of the best ways to mitigate that is taking notes. Now, how do you prefer taking notes? Do you do it digitally or handwriting notes? Please put it into the chat. Do you prefer digital note taking or handwriting? Wow, handwriting across, wow, 90% handwriting. So I'll tell you, when research is done at universities, the people that retain the most and understand the most are handwriting their notes, all right? And we've done many podcast episodes on this, but here's a simple way to do whole brain note taking. Put a line right down the page, and I would challenge you to do this the next few days. And on the left side, I want you to capture. On the right side, I want you to create. So on the left side, you're taking notes. On the right side, you're making notes. So it's a left brain logic and right brain imagination and creativity. So on the left side, you're putting things like, how do you remember names? How do you read 2 or 3 times faster? Kind of things I'm teaching. What are the best brain foods? But on the right side, instead of your right brain taking you somewhere else and distracting you, your imagination, I'd rather it distract you and put you on the right side of the page. How can I use this? How does this relate to what I already know? What questions do I have during the VIP Q&A, right? So note-taking and note-making. Now the Y in your is going to stand for you. And now this is obvious, but this is, again, principles and processes to help you learn faster and have a limitless learning and limitless life. The U is just reminding you that it starts with us, right? We have agency. Meaning that believing in yourself, it's kind of like that bird. Because I had 3 traumatic brain injuries as a child, I also lost my grandmother to Alzheimer's when I was 7 years old. It really affects, like, my inspiration really was my desperation. But I don't like heights. And if you've ever seen, actually earlier today going for my walk, I saw this bird up in the tree, and the bird was like chirping and singing. And I noticed that, it was calm and it had confidence. And how many of you want more calm and confidence in your life? Right? We all do, right? But I noticed it's not because it puts its trust in the branch. It's calm and confident because it puts its trust in its own wings. And you have wings also as well. So just remember, you are responsible. I remember when I got to introduce 2 of my favorite people together, superheroes. I talk a lot about superheroes. They wanted to meet each other, and we go to dinner, and it was Richard Branson and Stan Lee. right? The creator of what? All of the most amazing superheroes. And we're in the car, and I was like, can I ask Stan? I was like, I got to do it. I'm going to regret not saying this. I was like, who's your favorite superhero? And he says, Jim, my favorite superhero is Iron Man. And he said, Jim, who's your favorite superhero? And he was wearing, I posted this on Instagram, a big Spider-Man tie. And I was like, Spider-Man. Without a pause in his iconic voice, he goes, with great power comes great, you know it, responsibility. And maybe because I had too many head injuries, I tend to reverse things sometimes when I read or when I hear it. Maybe you know what that's like. And I heard something different. I was like, you're right, with great power comes great responsibility. And the opposite is also true. With great responsibility comes great what? Power. When we take responsibility for something, we have great power to what? Make things better. But when we complain and we put things off, right, that just wastes a lot of energy and time. And we can't be upset. Let's get real. This is a coaching. We can't be upset by the results we didn't get from the work we didn't do, but it starts with us, right? The you. Now, the O in your stands for outcome, knowing your outcome. One of the videos we have online has millions of views is my morning routine, right? The things, and I know Tony and Dean, everybody has their own morning routine. Mine's about getting my brain right. So one of the things I do when I'm in bed, instead of picking up my phone first thing that rewires your brain for distraction and reaction, I do this thought experiment. I invite you to do it also for this event. I say, I fast forward to the end of the day. And if a family member, my wife, a friend asked me, how was my day? And I was like, today was amazing. I crushed it today. And I asked myself, what had to happen in order for me to say those words? Right? And I don't focus on my 200 things on my to-do list. I think about 3 things personally and 3 things professionally, right, that I could celebrate. And I would ask you to do the same thing. Over the course of this challenge, why are you doing this? Because things have to go from your head to your heart to your hands. If you visualize and have goals in your head, but you're not acting with your hands, you procrastinate, check in with the second H, which is your heart. Right, the emotions, because we are not logical, we are biological. You think about dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. We are this chemical feeling soup, but you need to have an outcome because you can't hit a target that you can't see. So what are your 3 major goals? And keep them very crystal clear, because clarity, as Tony talks about, is power, out of these next few days. The U is understand. And when I say understand, I mean understand yourself. Like right now, everybody take out a piece of paper and write your first name on it. First and last name. And then when you're done, switch hands, and underneath it, write your first and last name with your opposite hand. Now, okay, many of you still writing, I see on the screens here. The second time, it took longer, feels a little bit uncomfortable, and maybe the quality isn't quite as good. And that feels like you're learning something. Have you ever been interested in a topic, but for some reason you're not getting it? It feels like you're learning with the opposite hand. So it takes longer, it feels a little uncomfortable, and the quality is not quite as good, right? And so show on the screens your first, show it's for like your name with both hands on the video. Catherine, awesome. Joey, where's your note? Show it. Perfect, right? And so the idea here is understand your learning styles. Some people prefer to learn things in different ways. You know, we create an assessment hundreds of thousands of you have taken about, you know, are you a cheetah? Are you a logical owl? Are you a creative dolphin? Are you an empathetic elephant, collaborator? But understand yourself. And the more, I think you need the curiosity to know yourself and also the courage to be yourself. And then the R in your, and I'm going rapid fire, is rest. You know, at Tony's events, and I've been going to them for a few decades now, sleep is it's interesting, right? And here's the thing: how many of you want a better long-term memory? All of us, right? When you sleep, that's where you consolidate short to long-term memory. You clean out plaque that leads to brain aging challenges, but it means prioritizing your rest. My favorite ways of doing that: getting daylight first thing in the morning. Get 20 minutes of sunlight first thing in the morning will reset your circadian clock. No caffeine past 2 p.m. if you're sensitive to caffeine, because the half-life, it could stay in your system upwards of 8+ hours. Also, set an alarm to wake up, but I would prefer you set an alarm to go to bed. Your circadian rhythm, even on the weekends, loves structure. And then finally, a colder environment and a darker environment will help you sleep better. Now the B, this is a big one, is believe, right? Henry Ford said, if you believe you can or believe you can, either way, what? Right? You're right. People at events, they see me do these demonstrations, right? Where I'll have 100 people stand up in an audience and I'll memorize, and they'll introduce themselves on a microphone and I'll memorize all their names, and then people come to me and they'll say, Jim, I'm just too old. I'm not smart enough. And I always say, stop. If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. If you fight for your limits, they're yours, okay? Your brain is this incredible supercomputer and your self-talk is the program it will run. So if you tell yourself, I'm not good at remembering people's names, you will not remember the name of the next person you meet because you program your supercomputer not to. Even as you're going through the next few days, if you say, I can't do this or I don't understand this, just add a little word like yet at the end, all right? All right, perfect. And after that, what I would say, now that we're talking about the power of beliefs, because all behavior is belief driven. And Tony's going to go into deep about reframing your beliefs. Because in order, right, the sequence is really easy. It's be, this is the success sequence. Be, do, have, share. In that syntax, right? That's the order. You hear all the time when people win the lottery and they jump to the have part. What happens over time? Say it in the chat. Over time, right, they lose it all, right? Because they were having millions of dollars, but they were never being a multimillionaire or doing the things that would create that kind of wealth, right? And so the power of belief, just like I talked about that bird believing in itself, is so very important. But remember, if you truly understood how powerful your mind is, you wouldn't say or think something you didn't want to be true. And that's not to say you have one negative thought and it ruins your life, any more than eating just that one donut will ruin your life. But if you ate that donut 20 times a day, every single day, it would have an effect on us, right? Same thing with our negative self-talk. So if you believe you can, believe you can, either way you're right, but monitor your self-talk. The R, this is a good one, is review. So one of the most practical things you could do to build your memory is to do a rapid review. It's called spaced repetition, right? It's spaced interval learning. And what that means is we don't always learn something the first time out. And when you could maybe review your notes from the previous day, or when this day is over, an hour later, review your notes, that's where you consolidate short to long-term memory. And there's nothing wrong with reviewing. The challenge is a lot of people take great notes and they never look at them again. How many of you are guilty of this also? Right? So what I would introduce you to is look at your notes and review it. And a good way of doing it, see, I did a whole chapter on how to hack your habits in my book, Limitless. And here's the thing. First, you create your habits, then your habits create you. First, you create your habits, then your habits create you back, right? And so your routines, I believe that the treasure that you seek, every single one of you, is hidden in your daily routines and in your habits. If you do the habits of meditation, eating the best brain foods, prioritizing your sleep, right, exercising each day, those habits create you back. And so the key, though, to create better habits is you want to make the things that are bad for you, you want to make it difficult, and you want to make the things that are good for you, you want to make it easier for yourself. And one of the things that you would do is to trigger your review is tomorrow, before you start, and you log on to be able to join us for day 2, is review your notes from the previous day. Does that make sense? All right. Rapid review and recall. They call it retrieval practice. When you could quiz yourself and you have a learning buddy, that's why I think it's so important to invite your friends and family to join us for this. And it's somebody you could do it with somebody, and it's more enjoyable, and you'll get more out of it. And you could quiz each other. So the review is, learning's not always solo. It's social, right? It's this whole amazing community that, in Mastermind that's created because a positive peer group, you know this, you've heard this so many times, who you spend time with is what? Is who you become, right? And we all need people to encourage us, to cheerlead for us, to be able to challenge us. And if you haven't found that person yet, my recommendation is to be that person. Be that person for somebody else, and especially be that person for who? For yourself, right? So if you want to be able to learn something, be able to practice review. Now, the A in the brain stands for apply. Tony talks about this a lot. Knowledge is not power. It has the potential to be a whole lot of power. It only becomes power when we what? You know this. Put it in all the chats and the comments. It only becomes power when we, Barb, you have it. Kat, Kevin, Nadine, when you apply it, right? And here's the thing, and here's the truth. And I have to call people out on their BS, which is your belief systems, right? All the books, podcasts, trainings, challenges, none of it works unless we do. right? And so how I'm thinking about it is you could read a book, for example, and if you've seen pictures of me with Oprah and Elon, and people always ask how we bonded over books, right? Tony talks about Jim Rohn saying leaders are readers. You read to succeed. You know, Dean was talking about Warren Buffett earlier. When I asked Warren, like he reads 500 pages a day. Because if somebody has decades, as Tony talks about, of experience, puts it into a book, and you sit it down and read that book in a few days, you could download those decades into days, as Tony talks about. You can compress that, which is the biggest advantage, right? But somebody who reads a book and doesn't apply it, they're no better off in their life than somebody who's illiterate, right? So what I do is I ask myself 3 questions when I'm learning. My first question, I'll write this down, even on the left side of your page. How can I use this? I'm obsessed with this. How can I use this? Because Tony talks about you have a reticular activating system, right? Your brain is primarily a deletion device, is trying to keep information out. What you charge, like your name, when somebody says your name, you look because you're trained. Your reticular activating system, your RAS, is trained to pay attention. So what do you put a spotlight towards? The things you have questions about. Right? And then all of a sudden you have answers. So if you're reading or you're learning, ask, how can I use this? And then you have answer. The second question, why must I use this? Because it goes from your head to your heart, right? You get into the feelings. Write this down, please. Results. If you want better results, reasons reap results. Without even remembering someone's name. If you want to be better at remembering someone's name, ask yourself, why do I want to remember this person's name? Right? Maybe it's to show the person respect. Maybe it's to practice. Maybe it's to do these things that I've learned in the Own Your Future, program and the challenge, right? Because if you can't come up with a reason, you won't get the result, right? So that's the application. And the third question I ask, besides how can I use this, why must I use this, is when will I use this? All of you have the #1 productivity performance tool there is, which is your calendar. And you put your PTA meetings there, you put maybe a meeting with your boss, you put things, doctor's appointment, whatever, but are you scheduling your own personal growth? I truly believe as a learning coach, practice in accelerated learning and brain optimization, for every hour you spend learning something, listening to a podcast or reading or doing something like this, you have to spend an equal hour applying it, right? So that's kind of my framework. The I in Own Your Brain is instruct. Probably one of my favorites. This means your intention matters, right? And if you learn with the intention of instructing or teaching somebody else, you're going to learn it in half the time. I'm telling you. Like, what if you had to give a TEDx talk next week on the things you learned today? Would you pay better attention? Raise your hand. Would you take better notes? Raise your hand. Would you ask more questions? You would own that information and it would become yours because you personalize it. So they call it the explanation effect. The explanation effect says when you learn something with the intention of explaining it to somebody else, you're going to learn it better, right? And then why wouldn't you? Like the reasons you learn something is only 2 reasons. You learn it so what you could benefit from, but then you learn it so that you could share it with somebody else, right? The formula is you learn to earn to return. Right? We donated 100% of the proceeds to my book Limitless to build schools in Ghana, Guatemala, Kenya, clean water, healthcare for the kids, Alzheimer's research for women. Women are twice as likely to experience Alzheimer's than men, in memory of my grandmother. But that motivates me because I feel like truly, let me get a little raw here. Like I was phobic of public speaking. Imagine growing up with this learning disability, put in special classes, always called, these labels, right? And I never had the answer. Like even when they passed around the book when you learned how to read, I would dread that because I couldn't read, right? You remember that? I think that's where a lot of fear of public speaking came from, passing around that book, right? Because you get nervous, and you're not good at it. I would get it. The words wouldn't make any sense. I would just pass it on, and that was my big challenge. And so my 2 biggest challenges growing up, biggest by far, learning and public speaking. Now, life has a sense of humor because what do? All I do every single day is public speak on this thing called learning. But how many of you believe that your struggles can be strengths? That with challenge comes change, right? So learn it with the intention of teaching somebody else and you get to pay it forward. And then finally, the N here is you want to be able to nourish. And what do I mean? throughout this challenge, you're going to learn so many things, insight, instructions on how to nourish your mind, your business, you're nourishing your heart and your spirit. And what I would say also is you want to nourish your body. And so if you had a big processed meal and you're in a food coma, you're not going to learn very well, right? There's a whole area of science that I write about called neuronutrition, that your brain is only 2% of your body mass, but guess what? It requires 20% of the nutrients, different than the rest of your body. And so there's certain foods that are my favorite brain foods, right? And so some of them happen to be avocados, blueberries, I like to call them brain berries, broccoli, incredible brain food, olive oil is a good brain food. Also, if your diet allows, eggs. The choline in eggs is good for cognitive health. Green leafy vegetables like kale and spinach. Also, if you eat fish, wild salmon, sardine, your brain is mostly fat. And so getting that good DHA, those omega-3s. Turmeric, it lowers inflammation in your system, very good for your brain. One of my favorite, walnuts, high in vitamin E, which is very neuroprotective. And also everyone's favorite, dark chocolate, right? Not milk chocolate, but dark chocolate. What's good for your mood is going to be good for your mind. Actually, let me show you how to memorize these 10 things very fast. I'm going to give you a memory trick, right? Because I have a little bit of extra time. All right, everyone stand up real quick. I'm going to show you a method. It's like a memory palace. It's a 2,500-year-old memory technique that they use to be able to memorize scripts in talks, right? Before there were teleprompters and PowerPoint presentations. And so what we're going to do is, remembering is easy as PIE, P-I-E. P stands for place. You need somewhere to store it. The I stands for imagine. How many of you are better at things you see? You remember things better that you see? Like faces. How many of you are much better with faces than you are with names? Many. You go to someone and say, I remember your face, but I forgot your name. You never go to someone and say the opposite. You never go to someone and say, hey, I remember your name, but I forgot your face, right? That wouldn't even make any sense, right? But we tend to remember what you see, so imagine. And the E is entwine those two things together. So let's do this. 10 places. Everyone say after touch this part of your body, say it out loud. Top. Everyone says top. Out loud, your verbal memory. Nose. We're going to go right down the body. Mouth. Ears. Throat, shoulders, good, collar, fingers, belly, and bottom. Now, all we do is imagine what we want to remember. Let's say, have you ever gone to the grocery store to buy one thing and you come out with 2 bags full of things? Except for what? That one thing you went to the store for? Now, what I want you to do is imagine the food in the place. So imagine avocados on top of your head, guacamole as a conditioner. Right, using motion, right? Tony talks about information and emotion becomes the long-term memory. Guacamole on your head. Second place in your nose, blueberries coming out of your nose, right? What does that feel like? What does that smell like? Good. Your mouth, third place, broccoli. Imagine a big stalk of broccoli stuck in your teeth. Good. All right, your ears. I want you to imagine cleaning your ears with olive oil. Take a moment, imagine you're 8 years old, you're using imagination, clean your ears with olive oil. Your throat, right? I want you to imagine instead of an Adam's apple, there's an egg, a hard-boiled egg. Good. Your shoulders, you have shoulder pads, kale and spinach. Good. Your collar, imagine a necklace made out of salmon sushi. Imagine it's a week old. What does that smell like? Your fingers, turmeric all over your fingers. Your belly button, you're eating nuts, walnuts out of your belly button. Just take a moment. What does that taste like? And finally, your bottom, dark chocolate. I don't want to know what you're picturing. So what I would love is how many of you remember, put in the chat if you remember what was on top? Avocados, blueberries, and then write them down. Fantastic. And I'll finish with this, everybody. Years ago, this is how, if you want to be able to own your future, years ago, I got to do this training for 20th Century Studios in LA. It was a film studio, and it was my best training ever. And afterwards, the CEO walked me around the property, and I saw this picture of Wolverine. And Wolverine, I was like, I can't wait for that movie to come out with Hugh Jackman. He picks up his phone because it wasn't coming out for a few months, and we're sitting in the theater, and then I'm watching like Hugh Jackman fight all these super ninjas. An incredible Friday afternoon. But after that, he's like, Jim, how was the movie? I was like, this was incredible. Thank you so much. I was like, you don't know this, but I had learning difficulties. I couldn't read. I learned how to read by reading comic books. My favorite was the X-Men because they didn't fit in. And I used to ride my bicycle when I was 9 years old, trying to find the X-Men school because it was in Westchester, New York. according to the comic books where I grew up. He's like, I didn't know that you love superheroes and the X-Men. We have another 30 days of filming a new X-Men movie. Do you want to go on set? And I was like, I would love to, but what can I do for you? Do what you did for us. Teach them how to speed read scripts, memorize their lines. And I was like, I could totally do that. The next morning, we get on the plane. They call it the X-Jet. And I don't see Hugh Jackman. The entire cast of X-Men's on the plane, right? Imagine my 9-year-old self. I don't see Patrick Stewart. I see like Professor X. And I'm sitting between Halle Berry, Jennifer Lawrence going to Montreal to film the new X-Men movie. And guess what? This is the kicker. The very first scene they shot, where did they shoot it? In the X-Men school, right? And I got to see, as a 9-year-old, see my heroes come to life. Fast forward, I'm home. There's a package waiting for me the size of a TV. I open it up, and it's this photograph. It's me and the entire cast of X-Men. There was Hugh Jackman, and people say, who photoshopped that Asian dude in this picture? But here's the thing, even better than that was the note from the chairman. It said, Jim, thank you so much for sharing your superpowers with us. I know you've been searching for the superhero school ever since you were a kid. Here's your class photograph. And the reason why I finish with this is that, you know, when you go into the future, if you can imagine it and trust it and believe in it and step into it, there's a version of yourself that you haven't met yet. And the goal is we show up every single day until we're introduced. My name is Jim Kwik. Thank you so much. Be limitless, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Jim Kwik. Thank you so much. Let's give it up for this amazing man, Jim Kwik. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. One more time, everybody. Give it up for Jim Kwik in the chat box. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. One more time. Thank you so much, Jim Kwik. Thank you, thank you. Oh, yes. All right, my friends, if you're feeling good right now, put both arms up in the air. Give me a wave if you're VIPs and say, oh, baby, yes. So we're moving into the next segment of the day. And just to wrap up from Jim, wasn't that incredible, by the way? Jim Kwik, beautiful, amazing. He said something at the end that's really important that we all remember, and I'd love to invite you to type this in the chat box. He said, there's a future version of you that you may have not met yet. Type that in. There's a future version of you that you may have not met yet. You're here at the Own Your Future Challenge, and the future you is in your future, wanting to invite you to join it. And Tony and Dean have designed this day very meticulously with every single speaker, with every single thing you're learning, to take you on a journey to owning your future. And one of the most important things to start with is training your brain, and that's why Jim is here, because it puts you in a state of focus. It helps you harness yourself and exactly where you want to go. What more do you want? What destiny do you want to create? And really channel your energy to that. And the greatest way to make a profound shift in your life is to start with your energy and your physiology and also your focus. But with that is the discipline to actually decide to go after the thing you want to do. So a lesson that I learned from Tony Robbins, who we're about to hang out with in just a little bit, Tony Robbins, everybody, is he says the moment you learn something powerful, take a moment, grab a pen, and capture the lessons that you learned, the takeaways. So we're going to give you just 3 minutes. I'm going to stay right here with you, and then we're going to bring Dean Graziosi out to jot down if you forgot everything, if you lost your notebook from this challenge, and you wanted to remember 3 to 5 takeaways from Jim's talk that would help you and support you that you could apply to your life, what would they be? And what are the lessons you learned from today that will help you get the most out of this week? We have 5 days with you. We have to give everything that we have from an energy standpoint. So what would that be? Dara says, own your brain. What's the lesson you're taking away? 3 minutes on the clock, begin, and I'll see you right back here. And once you've got your lesson, throw it in the chat. What's a takeaway you're taking away from Jim Kwik's talk? Be, do, have, share. 1 hour of listening to 1 hour of applying. Doing my brain yoga. And more specifically, how could you apply these teachings to the next 5 days? If you're going to own your future and give everything you can to this challenge, What takeaways will help you do that? Five seconds left. Don't hurry, but hurry. We got a big day ahead of us. Knowledge is profit. There we go. Look at the energy in the chat box. Let's put this on the screen. Be, do, share. Limits are transparent. I am possible. I can learn anything that I practice. It's up to me to own my future. Reasons equal results. 20 more seconds and we're going to bring Dean Graziosi up to the stage. Channel that energy, you beautiful human beings. All right, Own Your Future Challenge community. It is time to continue owning our future. Please help me welcome to the stage, Dean Graziosi.
All right, I guess I was muted. All right. So I'm going to make this really quick, guys. So the cool part is we have a studio here in Arizona, and we have another studio in Florida that's Tony's. That's this bigger, grander. It matches Tony. And long story short, I want to get to going. Tony is fired up. He is ready to deliver. And here's what I want to share to you. You know, by way of introduction, you don't need much to know about Tony Robbins, but I want to tell you what I know about the man behind the scenes. You know, you see Tony on stage, he brings more energy than any man I've ever seen in my life. His commitment, his dedication to changing your life is unlike anything I've ever seen. And I got to witness that like you guys did, as someone who bought his course and bought his books and went to his events. And then for the last decade, I get to call him a brother and dear friend. And that man behind the scenes does more than you could ever imagine to prepare, to serve, to give back, not only from what he donates and the people he helps when no one's watching, but the way he studies and learns patterns so he can give you the skills to thrive, especially in this new world. And it is such an honor and a privilege to call him a friend, call him a brother, and I'm so excited for you. Please give it up for my dear friend, Mr. Tony Robbins.
See you all. How's your energy? Stand up just for a second. You've been sitting for a while. Let's make sure your energy's high. Shake your body out a little bit. Come on now. On three, let's shake the building. 1, 2, 3. Wake it up. Come on now, just for a second here. Create some energy. That's it. Nice job. Jen Coe's got it going. Jay Jimison's ready to rock. There we go. Nice to see you, Leah Walker. Cool job, Jody. Let me hear you guys out there. Make some noise so I know you're fully alive. That's it. Oh, yes. Have a seat, feeling great. How are you? Listen, it's a pleasure to be with you here. Will you first give it up for my dear friend and partner there, Dean? Give it up for Dean, if you would. He's really committed to making this difference with you. Oh, yes. Dean and I became dear friends about a decade ago, and it's pretty exciting to see what's happened. Dean was a student of my work from about 25 years ago. I've been doing what I'm doing now for more than 45 years. How many of you are less than 45 years old? I'm just curious out there. So for basically a lifetime. That's good to see you all. And I got to tell you that when we first got together, we had so many fun things we're doing. And I was like, you know, the thing I'm most passionate about is helping people get the experience of what we have the privilege of doing. And what we have the privilege of doing is not only something we love, but something that's truly meaningful. To be able to help somebody improve some aspect or many aspects of their life is one of the most fulfilling things for the spirit and for the soul, but we also are able to do it as our life, as our career, as our business, so we can do it full time. And we've been able to do it for quite a long time. Between us, we have about 65 plus years of experience. And the world has changed a lot since the beginning times when I began, when we had the Stone Age beginning process of personal development. And I'm so excited for you to learn all the new ways that you can find for yourself perhaps a new career, perhaps a new passion, perhaps a new income stream, but one that's really meaningful. I think the next 5 days, I know, because we've came up with this a little more than a half decade ago. I probably was an even larger vision now than what we originally came up with. We have now more than 3 million people in our community, to give you an idea. All people that have just decided they're hungry for more and they don't want to settle. And to have 600,000 of you from 100 countries right now, can you give up for people all around the world that are joining us? Because they're literally all over the place here. Give it up for everybody. Wake it up. Whoa, yes. So it's amazing. And by the way, I'm really glad to be here because we had a lightning strike. I would have been on with you earlier and it literally knocked out all electricity. But through the power of tech, we're back here with you again. So listen, I'm here today and we're excited today to share with you this process because we've been impacted. I'm a result of self-education, the self-education industry, which was a small industry when I began, but it's a big industry today. And what I mean by that is it was really just the ability to figure out how to take yourself from where you are to where you really want to be, and to do that in the shortest period of time by really being able to connect with teachers. And when I began, the only way you could do that was books. And then there were audios in the very, very beginning. And I'm old enough to remember when those things were albums and 8-tracks and eventually cassettes were a great breakthrough. That's how long I've been around doing this. And I got to tell you, it was truly amazing when I began to see how I could change my life. I could enter another person's world. I could take a decade of their life experience and I could learn from them so quickly and be able to apply that to my own life and change my body or change my mind or change my emotions. And the changes that came about in my life were unbelievable because I grew up, I'm a kid from Azusa, California. There's nobody in my family that had ever had their own business or had ever been able to do anything they called successful for their life or be able to contribute in a really meaningful way. And, you know, we were dirt poor. I mean, we had no money for food. My life was changed because when I was 11 years old, a person came to the house and fed us, or we wouldn't have had a Thanksgiving meal. And it completely changed my life because it made me believe strangers care. A big part of why I'm here today is because of what came out of that experience. Because I figured strangers care about my family, I got to care about strangers. And it shifted me psychologically and emotionally. But I still didn't have the resources to change anything. I knew I wanted to contribute something in a meaningful way to the world. But to go from that area to where I could feed 2 people, and then 4, and then 1 million people. And now about 10 years ago, I saw that, you know, there was a huge dip in food services here in this country, in the United States anyway. We cut all the food stamps by $6 billion, which means every family needed food would have to give up a week's worth of their food unless people like you and I stepped up and helped. And so I called my foundation at the time and said, how many people have I fed over a lifetime? And it was 42 million people, and I was overjoyed. But then I said, what if I could feed that many people in a year? What if I could do 50 million meals in a year, 100 million years, 100 million meals for 10 years? And I'm proud to tell you we surpassed that this last year. We fed over 1 billion people in 8 years, all because of the things that I've learned through self-education and made that possible. So it's like, oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So I just, thank you. So I tell you that just because it's unfathomable to understand where I started. I didn't start because I was a genius and had these great skills. I just got started because I love people. I had certain things I had learned that helped me, and I wanted to help other people. And I learned most of those things from books, quite frankly. But it's like once I changed my body, changed my mind, my friends wanted to know I did it, so I started helping them. And then I saw how much it changed their life, and it made them so happy, and that made me so happy, and it became like a positive addiction. I wanted to learn more so I could help more. And gradually, I learned how to turn that into a business. But it was nothing like what you can start with today. I mean, it was really, really rough. If you want to start a business then, it cost a fortune. Just to send out, come up with a brochure and send it out costs $3,000, $4,000. You got to pay for postage. You got to pay for the printing. Not like today, you make something digital, you send it out for free. You have social media expand everything. You know, I had to go rent giant rooms to do things, huge expenses, and sometimes it didn't work out so well. So I just want you to know you're in the right place at the right time. You're in a place today where anyone who's got anything they've had a problem with and they could solve, or anyone who wants to share with other people, can build an extraordinary company, extraordinary business, extraordinary career. Something meaningful and something where you earn as much or more than you've ever earned in your life, and where you do things on your terms. Who's here because you're committed to finding some new source of career or business or income? Who's here for that reason? Just make some noise out there if you would, so I'll hear you out there, ladies and gentlemen. That's good. Good to see most of you. That's awesome. Well, I've seen this happen for so many people. In the last half decade, Dean and I, working with people all over the world, more than 100 countries, to do this, have seen these incredible stories. You know, people like our friend Jenna Kutcher, who started out literally, she went and bought a camera for $300, you know, on one of the sites on computer sites, and decided to start to learn to take pictures, and I got pretty good at it. And you can't make a living doing that, not much of a living. And then she got this idea, okay, well, what if I learned enough to really show people how to take better pictures? I could take my experience and show it to other people. And she built that into a business now that's multi-millions of dollars a year, and she's able to raise her children, be at home, be with her family, do what she loves. You know, I can remember Russell Brunson, some of you know. Russell is a good friend of mine, and he was a wrestler from Idaho. And he had some ideas of what he wanted to learn, but he didn't know anywhere where to begin to start. And then all of a sudden, we developed this little system, and he started to grow and went to our programs. You know, now he's built a company that's worth almost $1 billion in 10 years. And then there are just all the other people that found a little niche. We found almost 5,000 different niches of things that people are interested in. And you can see them from every way. We've had people that, you know, who went through a divorce and decided they didn't want to hate each other, and they wanted to be conscious parents and have a conscious breakup. And they did a great job with it. The friends are asking about it, and they've been on our program. They learned how to develop it in short order. They put together the first course, and now they're coaching people on how to build that and saving relationships and children. People who've come up with their child had huge eczema, unbelievable eczema, so painful. And a woman found up with a solution, and she came up with this way to coach parents and how to go through it, because you've been through it with your children, you know how intense it can be. A man who worked on taxes, never making that much, but then all of a sudden he had some cool breakthroughs. He said, what if I shared this with other tax professionals? So literally, I could tell you story after story after story. I was actually watching an interview this morning with one of our clients, a young lady from Singapore. Joy's her name, and Joy was talking about how she really wanted to be a coach, but she's really introverted, and she talked to this professional coach, and they said, you can't do it, you don't have a background, you don't have the training, you're more introverted, you're not going to reach people, and she was devastated. And we got her in our program and started working with her, and next thing you know, she made $100,000 a year. This last year, she did $1.2 million. So whether you're wanting to grow a business or have something on the side that you do that's just really fulfilling, I think that's really what this is about. So let me give you a sense of my early journey just for a second, so you really get a sense that it's not like what you see now, how it really started. I mean, I began in this poor environment, this poor family. I worked even when I was junior high school and high school so that we'd have food. I had to produce income for the family. And on the weekends when I was in high school, I was always doing odd jobs to get additional income. And my mom and my dad were talking, and I had 4 different fathers. And my fourth father was talking about this man that my mom knew, that kind of a friend of the family. And she talked about what a loser, my dad said, what a loser he had been. And then something had transformed him. Now he was so successful. And now he's buying houses. This is in the late 70s in Orange County, California. He was fixing them up and then flipping them and making all this money. And so I heard he needed somebody to do moving. And I said, listen, let him know I'll come move. I'm strong. I'll do that, because I wanted to get around him. I want to learn from him. And so I worked for a weekend with him all day, all night, 12-hour days. And he said, man, you're a hard worker. And he said, you know, I'm going to take you to lunch or dinner. Tell me when you want to go. I said, I would love to go, because I want to pick your brain. I hear you're really successful. I can see you're doing really well. And so we sat down at lunch, and I'll never forget, he says to me, I said to him, he said, why do you want to ask me these questions? I said, well, my dad said you used to be such a loser. Now you're really successful. Only kids can say these things, right? And I said, I really just want to know. He goes, your dad said that? I go, well, you know. He goes, well, it's true. I said, well, what changed you? He said, I went to a seminar. I never even heard of the term seminar. I said, well, what's a seminar? He said, it's where, you know, this man spends 30 years of his life, and he becomes successful after going through all his challenges, and he basically pours all that knowledge into 2 or 3 hours and saves you decades of your life. I said, wow, and it really worked for you? He goes, yeah. I said, well, could I get in one of those things? He said, sure. I said, well, could you get me in? He goes, yeah. But he didn't say anything after that. I said, well, will you? And he said, no. And I said, why not? And he said, well, because, you wouldn't value it if you don't pay for it. I said, no, I'm just getting started. I'm working, I'm in high school, I'm on my own. And he said, no. He goes, you'd have to invest in yourself. I said, how much is it? And he said, $35. Well, $35 would be like $200 today, to give you an idea with inflation, $250. And I was like, $35? I was making $40 a week as a janitor. I was like, I can't take a week's pay and go there. And he said, listen, well, then just go learn on your own and take 3 or 4 decades and maybe never learn. It's totally up to you. Or you could learn there and you could compress time. And I remember I went away and it was so frustrating. I was like, why won't he help me? And then, I thought to myself, he's right. I gotta do this. So I made what I thought was a giant decision. It really was. It was an important decision. It changed my whole life. And I went down, I heard this man, Jim Rohn, speak. I pulled up my 1968 Volkswagen Bug that used to turn off and explode, and I handed the keys to the guy at the seminar place and said, the hotel, it said, park this baby for me. I was wearing a blue leisure suit I got at the thrift store because I've been sleeping in my car. My mom kicked my dad out. After he went out, she thought I was on the side, so she kicked me out. So I'm literally sleeping in my car, and I go to this seminar, how to be more successful with Jim Rohn, and I take what seemed like a fortune to me to go make this happen. And I sat in that seminar and I'd read so many of the same books. I was writing like crazy and he'd say a phrase and sometimes I'd finish it and people around the table look at me like I was a little crazy, but I was just so excited about what was possible. And at the end of it, I went up to him and I said, Mr. Rohn, I said, I'm so moved by what you've done. And I said, I really want to help more people know about this. I'd love to come to work for you. And he said, well, young man, you have to go through all my seminars first and my leadership program and this and that. And he goes, and then we could interview you. And I said, I'll go to all of them. I said, but I don't have any money. And I said, I'm just on my own. I'm just sleeping in my car, but I got here to the seminar. I invested in it. But, it was like $1,200. It'd be like $12,000 to go to all those programs. I said, if you loan me the money, I said, I'll take all that I've learned. I'll transform my life. And I'll tell everybody that you did it. And then I'll pay you back all of it, as I'm successful. And he looked at me and said, young man, that's not how it works. He said, I'm not here to be your banker. He said, if you are committed, you'll find a way. I said, but I'm just 17 years old. I'm not. He goes, if you're committed, you'll find a way. Everybody finds a way. Some people have to succeed. Some people should. If you're a should, it's not going to happen. If it's a have to, I'll see you next Saturday, but you got to invest in all our programs and it's $1,200. And I left. I thought he was a hero. Now I was pissed. I was like, this guy doesn't care about me. He's trying to get, $1,200, say $12,000 in today's dollars. He's trying to get that from me? He doesn't care. And then as I'm walking away, I kept thinking to myself, he's right. He's right. He's right. I've always gotten what I had to have, but I haven't had to have much. And so I decided I was going to find a way to do this. So I figured, okay, if you need money, what do you think you should do? Go to banks. Because I used to think banks was a place you go when you need money. Banks is a place that wants to loan you money when you don't need it, right? How many know what I'm talking about here? Make some noise if you're out there, ladies and gentlemen. Come on, make some noise, right? And so I remember I went to bank after bank, rejection after rejection. I got so good at knowing they're going to say no when I walked in, and I was down to the last couple of days. And if I didn't get the money in this last bank, I knew I wasn't going to go to the seminar, and it was a must for me. And I'm telling you this because the difference between those who succeed and fail is not intelligence, it's not ability, it is not skill. You can get everything you need. It really is hunger. If you ask me what I've learned over the last 46 years that I've been doing this, and said, what is the one common denominator? Don't get me wrong, intelligence is invaluable. I love wickedly smart people. But how many of you know really smart people that can't fight their way out of a paper bag in their own life or their own finances? Make some noise if you know what I'm talking about out there, right? So sure enough, I found myself in this position where it's like, okay, I'm hungry, I gotta find a way. So I walked into this Bank of America in a place called West Covina, California. And before I got in, I didn't know what I was doing in those days. I now know I was getting myself in such a strong, certain state. And I walked in that place with all this passion and intensity, and I looked for somebody who looked persuadable. And I found this woman named Mrs. Williams who changed my life. And I went up to her and I shook her hand really vigorously because I was so excited. I said, Mrs. Williams, my name is Tony Robbins. I'm here today to borrow $1,200. I don't want it so I go on vacation. I don't want to buy a car. I want it so I can attend a seminar. And she started to laugh, which was not a good sign, right? And I was like, oh my God. I said, no, I'm serious. She goes, you want to what? Sit down, young man, sit down. You got a lot of energy, sit down. And she goes, I said, I want to go to this seminar. I'm going to learn how to change my life and my business and my finances. I'm going to grow things. I said, I'm going to learn all this stuff and I'm going to train hundreds of thousands of people. My vision wasn't millions at that time or billions of people. And I was going to train hundreds of thousands of people. And I said, I'm going to make a difference in the world. And she goes, slow down, young man. Let me see your application. So she starts reading my application. The first thing she notices is my address. Remember, I'm sleeping in my car. And she goes, Citrus Avenue. The bank was on Citrus Avenue. It's a huge avenue that goes through 5 cities. It's a commercial street. She goes, I didn't know there were any apartments on Citrus Avenue. And I said, well, I kind of have a mobile home. So she said, what do you mean? So I spilled my guts. I told her the whole story. I said, look, I park behind Denny's and 7-Eleven because it's 24 hours and they won't make me move, but it's temporary. But I made a deal with the mailman. He's such a beautiful man at 7-Eleven, and that's the address I gave you, and I'm there at noon each day to get my mail. And her eyes got this big, and she said, let me get this straight. You want us to loan you $1,200 and we can send it to the 7-Eleven where you'll get it where you're sleeping in your car? I said, yeah. She said, young man, I said, you don't understand. I got to do this. She goes, all right, calm down. She reads a little more, and she goes, you're 17 years old. I said, yeah, I'm 17. She goes, you can't even sign a legal contract until you're 18. I said, well, I'm almost 18. She goes, well, when are you 18? I said, when do I have to be 18? I said, well, my birthday's in 2 weeks. She goes, okay, we can probably deal with that. And then she finally looks at me and says, well, you know, Mr. Robbins, she said, I just don't know how the bank's going to loan you this money. And I said, no, you don't understand. And I got into this really passionate, sincere place. And she said, listen, slow down. She said, I believe you're going to do something. You really seem to be committed. She goes, so I'm going to do something. She said, I'm going to talk to the bank and do everything I can to get this approved. I said, I would really appreciate that. She goes, but I don't think they're going to say yes without a cosigner. She said, if you look me in the eye and you shake my hand and you swear to me on your heart, on your soul, that I'll never have to go looking for you, that you'll pay these things on time. She said, I will consider co-signing on this loan for you to give you your start. And I jumped out of the seat and grabbed her and hugged her and kissed her on the cheek. She was not quite ready for that shit. It's like a little crazy. And I told her I would always tell the story of how I started my career because of her. And I'm keeping good with that now. She passed away about 7 years ago. And I owe her because I took that money, $1,200, I think $12,000, and I went to these seminars. And what was great about that was it was more expensive than my car. My car was $980. I was sleeping in my Volkswagen. But when I went to the seminars there, I was going to sleep in my car, and I met a guy there named Mike Keys, who to this day is still my friend 40 plus years later. And we were both really broke, but I was more broke than him. He at least had money for a hotel room. And so he let me stay with him. And we sat in the seminar, 2 of the most broke guys there, and we wrote notes on every word he said. If he said the, I wrote the down. At one point, I figured out, I didn't go pee. I was like, I'm staying in this room for every moment. I'm not missing a word. I figured out every word was worth like 3 cents. So we wrote it all down. We took it all in. And the beauty of that is some people, it was easy to go do this. And so they took it easy. But we were committed. And I remember decades later, I went and I was in the back of the room. Behind there, I was invited. Jim didn't know I was there. And Jim Rohn, I heard that he started his seminar the same way every time, because Jim was very beautiful but very programmed. Everything he did, he turned to the exact angle. He dropped the chalk in his hand at the same tempo. Everything was choreographed. He was a really elegant man. And he would start every seminar by saying, I want to do a good job today, just like I want to do for all of you guys. Because he said, you never know who's in your audience. And you never know how they're going to change their life or somebody else's. And I really remember that even in this moment now with all of you. And then he told a story. He said, I remember one day I was doing a seminar and there were about 1,000 people and there was this kid in the second row in this round table and he was taking notes like crazy and yelling back answers. And he said, that kid was Tony Robbins. And he goes, I got to be his first mentor and now he's mentoring the world. And he also talked about Mike Keys, the 2 guys that were probably the worst, most broke, most difficult parts. So I tell you that story because I got to speak at Jim's funeral about 15 years ago, beautiful man. And to see the trajectory from where I began to working with every living president, the last 5 presidents of the world, being with members of every kind of royal family you can imagine around the world, coaching some of the greatest athletes and actors and multi-billionaires, all that started with me just as a kid saying, I'm going to educate myself each day and get a little better. And I want you to know that was when there wasn't anything like the opportunities that we have today in terms of technology or tools. I can remember doing my very first seminar, and I went out and I ran all these ads, and ads were expensive. You couldn't do things on social media. And I made these brochures up and I promoted this free seminar. I wasn't charging anything for it, I just wanted to help people. And I rented this hotel down in Los Angeles at the LA Hilton, and I rented a room for 500 people. I feel I'll get 500 people in there. It's free. I'm going to give them the best stuff I've learned. And it was supposed to start at 7. I got there at 7 and there were like one person there. I was like, maybe I said it was 7:30. I checked the ad. It was 7 o'clock. 7:15, there were like 3 people. Finally, about 7:20, 7:25, I had to start, and there were 7 people there. I opened the doors and 7 people walked through, and the worst part is they sat in different parts of the room, and I was like, no, come down here to the front row. And then I gave my all for 3 hours to these poor 7 people. You can imagine what that was like, right? Like taking a drink out of a fire hose. But I gave my all, and that's how I began. And then I built from that. And what I really learned was that success leaves clues. That's what Jim Rohn taught me. That if someone is really successful, there's something they're doing that separates them from everyone else, something that makes them better. They're not better than you, they're just doing something better. And they're not lucky. And when I started having that mindset, that's when everything changed. And so I'd gone to work for Jim Rohn, and I didn't have any content, so I don't know, you might say, Tony, well, I'd love to get in the self-education business. It's a huge business. By the way, it's a business that's $1 billion a day right now. I remember when Dean and I started this half a decade ago, they said it would become $1 billion a day business. It already is. They're saying by 2028, it'll be $1 trillion a year business. Trillion. It is one of the fastest growing industries in the world. When I began, there was no coaching. I was the first person to call myself a coach outside sports because I didn't want to be a motivator. I didn't think I was better than other people, but I had coaches in sports where I was a better athlete, but I was on, the course. They could see things I couldn't see and help me. And so I started calling myself a coach, and it took decades, and then all of a sudden everybody became a coach. It became the term that everybody used. But there were no coaches. You had to be a therapist, and you had to go have somebody who was going to pay for it through their insurance. This entire industry didn't exist back then. But what it all began with was just this idea of, okay, every day I want to get a little bit better. Every day I want to use my hunger to break through and find another level. And when I did that, things really change. So here's the opportunity for you today. There are tools now that can change everything because the current education system is a disaster. We have $1.8 trillion worth of debt right now for people's educations. And as you can see, our current president is trying to get people to forgive a certain amount of that, and other people are saying, why should I pay for somebody else's college education? And there's so many people who have gone through those 4 years of college, and what we found out is 77% of the people who go to college and pay $50, $100, $150, $300,000 do not actually get a job in the industry of what they studied. And of the 30%, the 23% that do, 40% of them do not love what they do for a living. So how many think the current education system is out of date, that it doesn't deliver for what the real value is? Make some noise if you agree with me on that, right? Well, then the bottom line is you want to take advantage of the fact that what people want today is results. They don't want to listen to a professor pontificate who's never run a business. They like to talk to somebody who's just getting started business like them and has figured out some solutions and can give them quick answers they can apply right now and earn more money or have more time for their family or make a difference. And that's where the hunger is today. So what I found is that with that kind of opportunity, there's one other thing that collided that changed it all. I've seen in my seminars now about 12.5 million people. You know what's crazy? 4 million of them in the last year. Because technology has completely changed the game. COVID. How many of you, COVID really had a negative impact on your career or your finances, your family, what was going on? How many had some real pain out of COVID? Make some noise if you did so I can see you out there, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. And tell me, how many of you found a way to use COVID, though, to improve something, to get closer to your family or to begin something, start something? Make some noise if you did. That's great. Well, if you can imagine me, I've spent a lifetime building this business of going out and helping people. And my events were the primary business. I have 111 other companies. We do $7 billion in business. I have no business background. Same thing. I just learned each step of the way, and I just kept building. But the business that matters to me is really my mission, which is this, educating people. And overnight, I can remember we had this big party. We raised all this money to save children. And the next morning, I was so excited, and I got a phone call from the governor's office letting us know we can only put 100 people in a stadium that's supposed to be 12,000 people in San Francisco, San Jose area. I'm like, what? Because everything's canceled because of COVID. You can't put people in there. And I was like, okay, I don't give up. You know what I'm gonna do? We're going to Vegas. They're never gonna shut down Vegas. So we moved 12,000 people to go to Vegas, and sure enough, 8 days before Vegas, guess what they did? They shut down Vegas. And I was like, okay, we're going to Texas. Anybody from Texas out there? Texas is its own country, basically. That's how Texans look at it. I see John Self there from Texas. Nice to see you. Well, I know the governor, he's never gonna shut it down. He said, I'm never gonna shut down. Sure enough, 10 days before, he shut it down. I said, okay, we're gonna go to movie theaters, and we're gonna put 10 people in each theater. That's what they'll legally do, but they'll have a big screen, great speakers, and a few people to interact with, and they can do it locally. That's what we'll do. And sure enough, they shut down the movie theaters. So then Dean says to me, Tony, you ought to watch these people doing these webinars. And it's like, I watched this person do a webinar with 2 little 52-inch screens, and I'm used to a stadium, everybody's rocking, the music's going, people's lives transform, 10, 12 hours a day. I said, I cannot do that. I cut my throat first, there's gotta be a better way. And so sure enough, I remember I was like, okay, get out a tape recorder. I said, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna find a building with 50-foot high ceilings, and we're gonna put 20-foot high LED screens, and we're gonna do them 50 feet all around me. And we're gonna go, I'm gonna call, the founder of Zoom, Eric Yuan, he's a friend of mine, and say, listen, you're a fan of my work, I need your help. I can't just have 1,000 people, I gotta have 25,000 or 50. I need to change the technology. And he agreed to. And it's like, I'm gonna create a piece of software in their phone, so instead of clapping, they can shake their phone, and that'll make the sound. If one person does it, we barely hear it. When 10,000 people, 20,000 people do it, it'll go crazy. And I said, we're gonna do all this, and I hired all these people, we're gonna do this in 9 weeks. And they all said, Tony, this is a 9-month project. I said, well, you won't be working on this project then, right? And sure enough, we finished it in 9 weeks for our very first seminar, and instead of 10, 12,000 people, we have 25,000 people. Now this year, we did one program for 1.5 million people, we did one for 2.8 million people, working with you guys here for the next 5 days for 600,000 people, just more and more people reach. So I'm telling you that because guess what? You, from your own home today, can learn to coach, to build a course, to do a mastermind. You can do something that's on a foundation when you're not there and see immediate impact. And we can show you step by step how to do it in speed like this. And I know you've all heard about AI, and some people are worried about it and concerns with it, and some people think it's too complex, but Dean's gonna show you the next couple of days, just like Siri, when you first got Siri. How many remember when you got Siri and you dictated something and it printed out your text and it was like magic? Who remembers the first time you did that? Make some noise, you remember that experience, right? Right? And it was so easy. Well, Dean's gonna show you next couple of days for all of our clients, we built something pretty amazing where it'll get you from like, oh my God, how do I write this? How do I get this done? It'll get you off the page into gears. I used it just the other day. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. I was over in Germany. I had a big seminar for 16,000 people live and in person in a stadium. And I finished, and I got at 2 o'clock in the morning, I had to go to bed. I got the next morning course to do. And I got these emails and people in the US, and there's some things they needed from me, and somebody needed to write up about something, about this project we're working on. I said, look, I'm the guy that writes 670-page books. You want me to write you, a page and a half at 2:30 in the morning? And so I pulled out our little Siri type person who doesn't just tell you the time, she can do things for you. And I said, Siri, not Siri, but I won't tell you the name, I'll let Dean share with you and demonstrate it for you, but it'll blow your mind. It's so simple. You don't have to know anything. And I just said, okay, write it 1.5 pages about this in my voice using these themes. And then I did 3 improvements, took me about 8 minutes, and I was done. I would have spent an hour and a half at 2 in the morning trying to refine that, and it was done, and it was awesome. How many are excited about what AI could do for you if it was really made simple, ladies and gentlemen, right? So between the ability to use Zoom, the ability to post things, the ability to limit with social media, all the tools that ever existed in mankind have brought us to this point where literally there's no limit to what you can do if you want to start a business and really make it happen. And the people that are doing it right now are out of their mind, but here's the secret, and this is why I came by today. We have a system that can show you how to do this. And I've gone through this process, and Dean has as well, so we can save you so much of the pitfalls and the pain and the challenges. But here's all you really have to learn to do. You have to learn to get beyond your fear. Because the only thing that stops us is fear. How many of you have some sincere concerns about inflation, about where the economy is, or about your own finances? How many have some? Make some noise if you're out there, if you have that sincerely. Make some noise if you would. You know, people are really worried about inflation, as you can imagine, for good reasons. You know, food is up like 40%, oil's up, everything's up. And I saw the other day, Warren Buffett was speaking. You know, once a year he does his big conference, and you know, he's in his 90s now. He's seen everything. And somebody asked him a question, are you worried about inflation and what should we do? He said, yes, it's something you have to be concerned about. But he said, I'll tell you the solution. The solution is simple. He said, the way you beat inflation, and someone else said, well, what about the dollar? Is the dollar going to go down in value? They're asking all these money questions, complex questions. And he said, I can tell you two things. You don't have to worry about inflation 1 ounce if you decide to consistently invest in your own skills and abilities. If you invest in you, in fact, the first time I interviewed Warren Buffett, I did a book where I interviewed 50 of the smartest financial people in the world. And when I asked them, what is your most powerful, what's been the most important investment of your career? I thought he was going to say Coca-Cola or Geico or some, you know, one of the big, huge companies that's made him a fortune. And he said, Tony, it's what you do. I said, I do a lot of things. What are you talking about? He goes, well, Dale Carnegie. I went to Dale Carnegie when I was young. And he goes, that is what made me who I am today. Because he said, all my knowledge was worthless if I hadn't learned how to communicate it and be able to put it out there and create influence. And he goes, so that skill is the most important skill. And anyway, the otother day, he was talking about this again around inflation. He said, if you're worried about anything, but you become the best lawyer, the best doctor, the best, you know, copywriter, the best webmaster, people are going to pay you. If we're in shekels, they'll pay you more shekels than anybody else. The most important investment is in you. When I was with Jim Rohn, I really learned that lesson as well. But he said the second thing you need to know is you need to own your own business. And you need a business, a specific kind of business in today's world. A business, he said, that has low CapEx. Now, CapEx is a big word. What does it mean? It just means capital investments. I'll give you an example. If you own a business, let's say you have a business where you rent out giant moving machines to companies that do construction. You might spend $2 million in that machine. And then as time goes by, the machine breaks down, you're going to have to buy another machine. Well, with inflation, the cost of that $2 million machine in the future is going to be $2.5, $3, or $4 million. And so what happens is you're at risk. But if you have a business with low CapEx, it means you don't have to have a bunch of stock. You don't have. Those businesses are the businesses he said will do well at any time. And there is no greater business than the education business in this area. Because you don't have to store up anything. Everything you're doing is your knowledge or your skills or digital products. And all this now has the ability to dematerialize the cost of things for you, where you can do things with a margin. I knew nothing about margin when I started business. What is a margin? Well, if you run a business and you have a restaurant, a lot of them have like a 10% margin. Well, 10% profit, that means 90% of the money is going to do everything else. One mistake and that restaurant's out of business. One COVID time and shutting things down and those restaurants went out of business. But when you have a business that's an education business, there's a much larger margin. You have less cost to deliver what you have in today's world. How many follow this? Make some noise if you're with me on this, ladies and gentlemen. All right? So I found in my own experience here that, okay, so that can make this really successful if you get good at this. But how do you really get good at this? And I learned this from Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn said to me, I remember one time I went to him and I said, you know, I have 4 fathers. They're all really good men, every single one of them. And every one of them was broke. The reason I feed, you know, 100 million meals a year right now is because I was fed, but I had to be fed because my fathers couldn't feed us. And they were good. I don't understand how good people could be in that place. And I said, Jim, you know, you're very successful and you've met so many successful people. What's missing? What's going on? And he taught me something I'll never forget as long as I live, and I hope you hear me right now. He said, Tony, your fathers were good men. He said, but you have to understand something. We're all equal as souls, but we're not equal in the marketplace. I said, what does that mean? He said, well, answer a question for me. Do you think it's possible, let me ask all of you, do you think it's possible to make twice as much money in the same amount of time This means yes, this means no. Make some noise, which one? Yes or no? Twice as much money, same amount of time. Is it possible? Yes, of course. Could you make it, he said, 10 times as much money in the same amount of time? Yes or no? Make some noise if it's a yes and give me a little thumb up if it's there. He said, are there people that made 100 times much same amount of that much money in the same amount of time? And I was like, yeah, there are. And he said, okay, Tony, what's the difference? I said, I don't know. He goes, that's the problem, so I'm going to tell you right now. Your father were good men, but they did not develop skills that were valued as much in the marketplace. So what do you mean by that? So well, think about it this way. If you go to work for McDonald's, I remember what first told me the story, but today, somebody at McDonald's makes 8, 10, 12, they're trying to get to $14 an hour. They basically are making $20,000, $30,000 a year. You can't live on that very well. It's not designed to be. He said McDonald's is supposed to be a starter job. You're not supposed to go there and stay there. But he said the reason it's paid so little, Tony, is because it doesn't take a lot of skill. You don't have a lot of added value when you work at McDonald's because almost anyone can learn that skill in half a day. And frankly, today they have pictures. You don't even have to know numbers to be able to do it. And soon you and I both know it's going to be robots. It's already happening, right? Self-serve and robots. So those jobs are not that valuable, so you don't get paid that much. But